Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. You made it through another week. And a good friend of the show by the name of Joe's Shop, you know Joe, he sent a package over and that inspired today's show today. I'm filming this early because yesterday was the Long Island Tool Meet. And so I had to get the shows in early so that, you know, I'm on schedule. And I'll have that show for you on Monday, what we picked up there. I don't know. I haven't been there yet, but hopefully it was a good show. And it always is. And we have a couple things to talk about today. I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's get started right away. Okay, next up, one of my big passions ever since I was a kid, and I didn't even know what it was called. I just knew I liked ropes. I like nets, cargo nets, all kinds of nets. I like pulleys. I like carabiners. And then I realized what I really liked was something called rigging. And when I got into it, actually, the scouts introduced me to it. But wow. And then when I got into the service, it was like, forget it. It's just everywhere. And I still enjoy it. I love rigging stuff up and using pulleys and levers and come-alongs and anything like that. So I want to show you here. I was cleaning up upstairs and I came across some of my in a box that I had tucked away. I didn't even know where it was actually, and that's why when I find this stuff I want to show it to you before it gets lost again. This is just some of the rope. I'm going to cut a piece of this off so I can demonstrate the some of the hardware I found. Really cool stuff. Now, we try our hardest not to cut rope whenever we don't have to. We like to keep it long as possible, but and sometimes you need a short piece or whatever, like I'm going to show for demonstration. And I turned you guys onto this a while ago. I don't even know. They still make different brands. And actually, this was made in the USA. As you can see here, made in the USA. There's a company that still makes this with red handles that isn't Craftsman, but it's called a Handy Cut. Has extra blades in here, and you can see what it is. It's just a cutter, an anvil style cutter. This thing is fantastic. Worth every penny. I don't know. I bought this new. It came in a set of two. You got to get one of these if you don't have it, but what a well-made tool. And let me show you how it works. I'm going to cut a piece of this rope here. This is a braided climbing rope, usually pretty hard to cut. I'm going to take it in here like this, and look at that. Just cuts beautifully. Now, there's always that little strand at the end. You don't want to pull it too hard, but now once you have it like this, you could hit that with the a little torch to melt that so it don't unravel, if you don't want to whip it. Okay, here you go. We cut a little section off here just to demonstrate. We put a little heat shrink, but you don't really need the heat shrink because this is seal it up. You can see it turns like almost like a hot melt glue when you glue this stuff. It don't come apart, but it just helps. And this is this type of rope. It's a static rope. It's not a stretchy type for climbing, but these are very difficult. These braided ropes are hard to knot. Meaning that if you try and knot this rope, a lot of times the knot, you see when I'm pulling it, it tends to want to come out. So you got to use certain knots when you're trying to cut this, or other types. But it's good for long pulls, things like that. But you always got to be concerned about the knot, that you use a knot that, or a hitch that'll lock up on this, because it's not a good knotting rope. But let me show you some of the rigging equipment. Now, this is some of the equipment we're going to look at today, but the whole reason we're getting into this today is because my buddy Joe from Joe's Shop, you know him. We all love Joe. He's the one that's responsible for us using the fiber wheel. So Joe sent over this along with a beautiful sweatshirt you'll see later on. But Joe sent this over, and what this is, it says Pat Pending on it. But it's such a great little gadget here. And what it is, you can see it's got the clamp. It's got a pulley, stainless steel pins, really nicely made. Stainless steel gate. And you can see when you pull this down, it locks in. And of course, Joe's got a bow line on the end here. But really cool. And I said, that's what made me, gave me the spontaneity to try and show you some of this rigging stuff. Because I just thought this was such a cool little thing. Let me show you this in sections first. Okay, first up, even though this is kind of on the outskirts of rigging. It's climbing gear, and the reason I want to start with climbing gear, this is the lightest gear you can get. It's very similar to rigging because basically that's what you're doing, but you're rigging yourself, and that's when you deal with climbing gear. It's usually made of a super light alloy, either titanium, aluminum, things like that. Super light because you've got to carry a ton of this stuff on your harness if you're going up a mountain, and you don't want to be weighted down with steel or heavier metals. Climbing gear is traditionally rated in what they call a kilonewton. You'll see a lot of times here it says KN. Can you see that on there? It says KN. And a kilonewton is a metric standard of force, and it's 100 kilograms. 1 kilonewton, which is about 225 pounds for us here. And you can see here, it's when you have a pulley or something, it's split. This pulley is rated for 22 kilonewtons, right? Or 11 kilonewtons on each line that's coming around. So you always have to remember that. And so depending on the newton you get, like here, like depending on the pulley. Now these pulleys open up like this to allow the rope to come in. They close up, and typically you'd have a carabiner holding this tight like this. Now this one here, you can see it's rated for 20 kilonewtons. See that? 20 kN. And that means it's good for about 4,500 pounds, this pulley, or 2,250 pounds on each side. So that's how you rate the pulleys. You can see here, this one's a big one, 32 kilonewtons. And again, super lightweight, aluminum. They have usually like a stainless pin. That's the only type of heavy thing they have. And then we have the carabiners. Carabiners have come a long way since I started using them back in the day. They were ovals with just a gate on them. And I still have dozens of those. The thing is that they don't use those anymore because they found out that the D-shaped is a much stronger carabiner. And the reason is when you put your rope here and your rope here, when there's tension applied to the rope, it'll put the D-shape will put the force on the solid piece of metal instead of the gate. The gate is always your weakest part. And if you notice, over the years, they've come with so many different gates. Years ago, a gate used to look like this. It was usually a piece of, see that? It was had to lock the gate. You had a screw collar that would go up there and lock it. And then you would unscrew it like that, and that would unlock it. And you could see here, the gate is even shaped that if it does elongate, it'll catch on this. But what happened is, as the rope would sometimes spin through the carabiner, it would spin that back and leave your gate susceptible to being opened. Then they came by with the spring-loaded. So this is spring-loaded. You have to turn it and then push. There's also a little hook that they used to put in here that if the gate did elongate, that it would catch on that hook. I have ones that were recalled because that hook was drilled a little too deep. And what happened was, some guys, after a fall, the gate wouldn't open because it got caught in that depression of the hook. So they recalled them, and that's a hard way to find out. After a fall, you can't get out of your carabiner. So these are, like I said, they're all different shapes and sizes, but remember, they're mostly Ds now. You don't see too many ovals anymore. And then you have your rappelling ring or something like that. These are used a lot of times for transitioning. And again, this one's rated for 32 kilonewtons. So it's a heavy duty but lightweight ring. Climbing stuff is really cool. This is an ascender. Now, it's just one different type. I have a few different types, but if you ever wondered what happens how do you get up a rope? You can't climb a rope with your hands, unless you're super strong. You're never going to be able to climb a climbing rope. Usually, back in the gym days, we would climb those big, thick manila ropes, but if you fall down a climbing rope, how do you get up that? Well, they have what's called an ascender. And what this is, it's a series of rings in here. This is just one different type. You put the rope through here, and it only slides up. It won't slide down. It locks. And I'll show you how. Now, this ascender is made for like a standard climbing rope, which I don't have down here, but I'm just using this manila rope because it's almost the same thickness. Now, what would happen is you would feed that through. Now, this would hook onto a loop that would go to one of your legs. You need two of these to work. And you would slide one up, take a step, slide the other one up. Now you can see here, it'll slide up very easily. See that? It slides up super easy. But when I put pressure on here, it will not come down. It won't it locks up on that rope. Again, this isn't the right rope to use, but when you use the proper rope, it won't even budge a half an inch, and then it'll slide up easy. And then when you step on this, it locks, and you can take another step. So that's how you ascend a climbing rope with an ascender. Next up, we have some rigging equipment you might see on a regular job site or in the military or in the Navy or on a ship or something. The difference being that this is no longer meant for lightweight, because weight isn't an issue. It's heavy, usually, 5 times the weight of a standard carabiner, but it's substantially stronger because of that. And you can see the different types they have. And what's interesting is you can see this gate is very similar, but when this gate opens, remember we had that gate open before, notice it opens to the side to allow you a thicker rope to get through there. So that's pretty interesting, a different style of gate that is. It opens kind of off to the side. This one here, another stint, this one here has that, again, that one that spins down, opens up here. These were, again, very common years ago. This one here, big, huge, heavy. Now, what's interesting about this one, it's a spinning style that you have to spin it and open, but you can't turn it, see? I can't, and the gate is rated here for 3,600 pounds. But you see, I can't turn it. You have to raise it up about 1/8 of an inch, then it will turn, then it will open. So again, they have all these kind of fail safes that the thing can't open on its own. Again, this gate opens off to the side to allow you a larger, like a sling. You would typically put like a sling through here or something like that, nice big one. Over here, these you might see a lot of times on cargo planes, things like that, with straps through them. Very common. Again, how it works is you push down the side here, releases that little pin to open up the gate. You see? Very interesting on these. Same thing here. This one here, you pull it this way to open up. It's again to lock everything, to make sure that this, when it's twisting under force, that it can't open that gate up and have a catastrophic failure. Now, a lot of times you'll see the heavier hardware found also in like tree work and things like that, guys that are doing tree service. This here, you might see sailing. If you have a sailboat, there's a ton of cool rigging on a sailboat. This one here is really interesting. And what this is, it's a release. Now, if you know as well as I do, if there's a lot of pressure, I mean like hundreds of pounds of pressure pulling apart like this, a lot of times it'll lock the gate so that you can't open it. There's too much pressure. It's expanding it and it puts a lock on the gate. This one here is set up in such a way that when there's pressure against here and here, this pin will be allowed to pull away, opening that gate up and releasing whatever it is. You see how that works? So it works like that, but the pressure's here. It's not really on the pin. It's more on this pin here, allowing you to pull this pin out of the way to release the gate. Very interesting for if you needed like a quick release. This is good if you need something, if you're hanging, something's hanging, you pull a line on here and you could pull it and it will release like a bale of hay, whatever you had to do, whatever. Here's another interesting, this is, again, it's a lightweight rigging, but this would be good for like a dog collar or something like that. You have a line going here, a line going here, and again, it's super strong, and if you want to release it, you got to pull back on this, and this gate will open up that way to release whatever line you have. So very interesting. You might find that on sailing or something. Here is another ascender. This one's a little different. Now, this one's heavy, so obviously it's not for climbing. You might see this in some kind of tree work or something like that, or if you had to raise something up. And let me show you how this works. You could see here, it's got little, and it's not sharp, but it'll grab onto the rope. This will work on this gauge rope, and it works on a lot more different gauges. You see the thickness that you could take here? So, and it says up here. So what you do is you feed your line, you open this up like this, you feed your line through, it's ribbed like this, you push this in your hand like that, squeeze it open like that. That'll allow the rope to pass through easily, right? Now, you can see here it says up. It'll slide up the rope easily, you see? But when I try and pull down here, or pull on this, it locks. It will not come out whatsoever, but it'll slide up the rope ever so easily. If you do have to get it. You could release it like this if you had to pull the rope the other way. So it'll slide up this way, but it locks coming down, a sender. Last up, here's something pretty cool. This is what's known as a grappling hook. Now, I know you might laugh because years ago when we were younger, these were all over. We always saw grappling, and they were used extensively. You know, we used to see them in the Batman movies and stuff when they threw it over the ledge or whatever. Any kind of grappling hook, usually had a burglar attached to the other end. But these actually come in handy for a multitude of things. And this one here is very nice because it's a folding grappling hook made of stainless. You can see here, you spin that down like that. It folds down. And then when you pull back the inner shaft here, it locks it so that these can't open up. So it's, you know, you could carry this in a small pouch if you needed to. They do come in really handy for certain things. If you have to grab something, if something's in the water or something, or you can throw it on a line, and it's always something to have. A folding grappling hook. You need one of these, right? So one of the best things about eBay now is that you can get a ton of fantastic books on any subject you want, because everybody's looking it up on the computer now, but a book reference is always great to have. And especially this one's good. U.S. Army Guide to Rigging. Although I learned almost everything in here from Scouts. They have the same thing in the Scout Handbook, but they have all kinds of rigging. Gives you all the principles of lifting, and it's always. And the best thing about an Army manual or any military manual is they break it down to a level that you can understand. Whereas, you know, some of these other books kind of assume that you already are a rigger, and then they start from there. But U.S. Army Guide to Rigging. Here's another one, Handbook for Rigging. All different types of books available on eBay. Next up, real quick, I want to show you a knot that has been one of my favorites ever since I was a kid. And it's called a Fisherman's Knot, or Waterman's Knot, or Angler's Knot, Englishman's Knot. It has a bunch of different names. It's meant for joining stiff or slippery line, because I'll show you how easy it is. Now, we all know an overhand knot, where you just take it's the simplest knot there is, right? Just start a knot like that. Well, you take your knot like this, and what you do is you form it like this. You take the other part. Now, this is for joining two lines that are similar in diameter. Take the other line, pass it through the knot, okay? And then what you're going to do is over here, you're just going to make another overhand knot on this side, just like this, okay? So all you're really doing is two overhand knots. You're going to tighten this up a little bit here. Tighten the other one up that you made before, right? And remember, this is such a hard line to knot. But I'm going to show you if you had to make a line, knot that wouldn't slip or you could trust. This is the one. So now you see you got two knots around the line. When you pull them together, watch what happens. They cinch against each other, and they actually will tighten up. You cannot get this apart. This is a super strong, super good knot. Now, the good thing about this is, after you're done your pulling or whatever, now, you know, now if you got to get this out, all you do is you just push them together, and these two overhand knots will come right out. So it doesn't lock up your rope. Fisherman's Knot. Keep it in your bag of tricks. Okay, so in closing, that was a pretty quick 18 plus minutes, right? Special thanks to Joe's Shop for sending in the items and also inspiring today's show. Let me know what you think about rigging. Do you like rigging? Do you like rigging components? I know some of you are going to be looking for that folding grappling hook. It's just because it's cool. And you say, you know what? I don't know why. I might be able to use it one day. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you again on Monday. Bye-bye.